So, if you want to be the best rider that you possibly can be, it literally starts from how you position your body in your daily life. If you are tired of hearing your trainer yell at your body position for not being straight and not being effective, you need to correct it from the source. If you're at work and you're not having a neutral spine, you're not setting your body up for success to be able to go and ride your horse effectively. It's that simple. Welcome to Elevate Your Ride, the podcast dedicated to elevating your performance in the saddle. I'm Ellie, your personal trainer.
And I'm Lauren, your mindset coach.
Okay, welcome to another episode of Becoming a Supple Leopard. This is going to be a really, really good episode. If you struggle with your posture, keeping your spine organized, back pain, feeling like you're ineffective with your core muscles, and you just don't know how to organize your body in a strong, athletic, comfortable position, then this is the perfect episode for you to listen to. So this chapter is called Midline Stabilization and Organization, which means spinal mechanics. So midline stabilization would be, so your midline is the center of your body. So from the center of your head down through your chest, your hips, down into your feet. Okay. So having strong midline stabilization means that if you're walking your horse down the barn aisle and your horse spooks and pushes you, if you have good, strong midline stabilization, you'll be able to hold a strong position through your core muscles and you're way less likely to fall on the ground or get injured, right? So, midline stabilization is super, super important. And then organization is how you put your joints together and how you use your muscles to keep those joints where they need to be. So, if you have really good organization through your spine, you're going to be way less prone to injury. You're going to have stronger muscles. It's overall where you want to be. So, let's go ahead and get started with a quote from the book. Prioritizing spinal mechanics is the first and most important step in rebuilding and ingraining functional motor patterns, optimizing movement efficiency, maximizing force production, and avoiding injury. In order to safely and effectively transmit force through your core and into your extremities, you need to organize your spine in a neutral position and then create stability through that organized system by engaging the musculature of your trunk, which is known as bracing. This is the basis of midline stabilization and organization. This chapter explains why it's important to prioritize spinal mechanics over everything else and how to organize and brace your spine in an optimal position. End quote. So that was kind of a lot, right? So we can think of it in simpler terms of your joints provide a framework that your muscles try to keep you in. So when you're riding, when you're working with horses on the ground, it's really important that you have really strong midline stabilization and organization to prevent injury and overall optimization for your body. If you're not strong and stable in your own body, it's really hard to ask your horse to also be strong and stable. And that's something that we really focus on in the all around is how can we manipulate our body in an effective way to manipulate our horse's body. So if you feel like you're not able to do that very well, then you should keep listening. Okay, so back to a quote. Throughout history, advanced thinkers have harped on the importance of organizing the spine in a good position, tightening the body, bracing the abdomen, and stabilizing the trunk. The core to extremity concept is not new. It's a well known fact that if you don't organize and brace your spine optimally in a neutral position with your head aligned over your shoulders and your rib cage balanced over your pelvis, you can't effectively transmit energy to the primary engines of your hips and shoulders. This results in staggering losses of stability, force, and power, and opens the floodgates to pain and injury. I'm going to pause for a minute. So, think about when you see a really, really strong horsemanship rider. Most of the time, they have really, really good mechanics. They are able to create a body that is strong and stable and effective. So, if you look at them from a side view, you'll see the head and neck in a straight, stable position. It's not leaning left or right or front or back. The head is stacked right on top of the shoulders. The shoulders are in an open position without being too far back or too far forward. They're right in the center where they need to be. You see a strong, stable, straight spine. You don't see it arch or rounded. You see it nice and flat and good core muscle engagement. You see hips are in a neutral position, right? The pelvis is right underneath the shoulders, not tucked in, it's not pushed back. And that's how we maintain a really good connection with our horse through our seat. And then if you look down to the knees, you see a strong straight line from the hip to the knee. So the femur is really strong and stable. And then you see another strong line from the knee down through the ankle. And you're able to see really strong alignment throughout the entire body. And so that's what we're trying to achieve, right? But then if you look at those, like I said, those really strong riders, they're able to maintain that position while they're moving. A really strong horsemanship rider is not static, they're really dynamic. They're able to move their body in a way that communicates with the horse while also keeping strong and stable. They don't get pulled out of position. They're able to move their body around and go right back to where they need to be in their own body, right? They have a good, strong base of support that they can leave but come back to really easily and naturally. Back to the quote. For starters, people tend to focus on completing a movement or lift with little or no regard for spinal mechanics. I'm gonna end the quote again and talk about this. So think about how often you see a horse person bend over and pick up a bale of hay. And hay bales are heavy and sometimes you just need to move them, right? So somebody who doesn't have good spinal mechanics and good organization, they're probably gonna round their back or arch their back to lift that hay bale off the ground. And while that might be an okay thing to do every once in a while, right? Like maybe you say, like I've got a little bit of a twinge, but I can do it. It's okay, that's gonna catch up with you someday, especially if you are doing it multiple times. Think about how people get over the age of 30 and they say, "Man, like, the second you turn 30, things just start hurting," right? That's from years of doing things without proper mechanics. So, even if something doesn't hurt in the moment, it's really, really important for long-term longevity and health of your body and especially your spine to make sure that you're lifting heavy objects in an organized way. Back to the quote. As I discussed in the introduction of this book, it's possible to generate huge amounts of force from a bad position without immediate, overtly negative consequences. I've seen athletes lift enormous loads from rounded and overextended spinal positions and walk away uninjured, grinning from ear to ear. This isn't always bad. And by that, I mean it may be a conscious choice made by a professional athlete who has measured what he can stand to gain against the cost. Consider a power lifter who chooses to round his upper back to break the deadlift world record. Although he loses shoulder mobility and leaks power through his spinal system, rounding his upper back reduces the distance that he has to lift the weight. He knows damn well that he's flirting with potential injury, but he's willing to take the risk. The key is that he must practice lifting in a good position so that when he chooses to round his upper back, it is in a conscious choice and not a default motor pattern. Pause the quote. So, that's what I'm talking about, right? Like, every once in a while, you can flirt with disaster a little bit, but it's not something you wanna do often, and it's something you wanna avoid at all costs. That being said, sometimes it's unavoidable. Sometimes shit has to get done, right? Alright, back to the quote. This is a very important distinction to understand because patterns repeated in practice will reveal themselves at game time and during daily life activities. Rounding your back for a deadlift will ensure that you pick things up off the ground with a flexed spine. Your overextended push up position will transfer to overextension in your running. Sure, athletes in competitions, warriors under extreme stress, and even desk jockeys will fatigue and eventually default to less efficient working positions. But, and this message is critical, prioritizing good spinal mechanics in training not only ingrains functional and efficient movement patterns, but also helps you buffer those lapses into overextension and flexion that inevitably occur. I'm going to pause this. So, if you practice in the gym how to keep a strong, stable, braced spine, it's going to help buffer if you do need to do something like round your back or arch your back to pick up something heavy, right? So if somebody who's never worked out before goes to pick up something really heavy and rounds or arches their back, they're going to be screwed, right? If somebody who's very experienced in the gym and knows what they're doing and has really good mind to muscle connection and has strong muscles, They might also have some ramifications down the road, but they're not going to be as severe. Back to the quote. The problem is that people who aren't aware of these fundamental truths would default to compromised forward training, which in turn develops and reinforces faulty body mechanics that exact payment during the physical actions of sport and life. The fact is that we do a great job of celebrating the completion of 50 push ups, but we haven't done a good job of identifying the loss of proper spinal positioning during those push ups. You will make a few movement errors under cardiorespiratory and metabolic load, which is fatigue, but you still have to be safe and be able to correct those errors. If it's for the world championship, by all means win, but recognize training is training. Again, as we need to move away from the practice makes perfect paradigm and realize that practice makes permanent. If you lift to the back that looks like a snake that's been hit by a car, you've taught yourself to generate force from that broken spinal position. And exercise is only half of it. If you sit, stand, or walk with an overextended or rounded back, chances are you will have trouble organizing your spine in a good position during loaded or dynamic athletic movements. The best defense is not to make those errors in the first place. Gonna pause the book again. So, something that I teach my clients, so many people come to me and they're like, I have poor posture and I need it fixed. I'm like, great. There's three things that we need to do. One, you need to be more mindful about your posture. You have to make the conscious mind to muscle connection that as you're standing, as you're sitting, as you're walking, as you're moving through daily life, you are going to have strong posture. It's something you have to think about thousands of times a day. It's a pain in the butt, but if you want to correct posture, that is the first thing that you have to do. Okay. Just as you're going through life, you have to have good posture. The next thing that you have to do is you have to train your muscles to hold that position, right? So if you have rounded forward shoulders, you need to open up the chest, you need to strengthen the back. Like there's specific exercises that you have to do to get your body back to where it needs to be, back into a strong, stable, braced position. And then the third thing that you have to do is then you have to start doing all your daily activities. So weightlifting, putting dishes away, doing laundry, like not just going through daily life, not just sitting, not just standing, not just walking, but the movements that you're doing, and that includes riding, have to include that stronger posture. And it takes conscious effort. It probably takes a good 6 months or a year for somebody to truly correct their posture and keep it corrected. And that might sound intimidating, but quick fixes aren't going to get you where you want to be. Long-term fixes, that's what we're looking for. Okay, so let's talk about an organized spine. An organized spine means that you're in a neutral position with the pelvis, rib cage, shoulders, and head in alignment. So the two most common spinal faults are going to be overflexion, which is when the upper back is rounded forward. So that's when you're looking at somebody and they've kind of got that tech neck look, right? Where their upper spine is rounded forward, their head and neck is pushing forward, the shoulders are rounded forward. Super, super common. Not great. And then we have overextension of the spine, which is the lower spine is arched, right? The pelvis is untucked, the glutes are disengaged, the lower core is disengaged, also referred to as an anterior pelvic tilt. This is something that you can either be born with or developed over time. Everybody's got different degrees at which their pelvis sits. I naturally have more of a overextended spine and anterior pelvic tilt, which my back injury doesn't help. So it's not that I have to correct that movement pattern, right? Because that's something that I was born with. That's just how my body likes to sit. But I have to make sure that I really work on my glutes and my lower core to try to mitigate to what degree that I have that overextension. Hi, everyone. It's your personal trainer, Ellie. If you're looking to become a stronger, more balanced, and flexible rider, I'm here to help. I offer virtual personal training sessions and customized workout plans that you can complete on your own. As a fellow competitor, I understand the physical demands riding requires, and my goal is to help you perform your best for your horse, whether you're preparing for a show or just want to improve your everyday rides. Visit lopendowntherailfitness.com or click on my website tab in the notes of this podcast episode to learn more. Let's work together to elevate your ride.
Are you looking for that extra competitive edge, struggling with show pin anxiety, or looking to set and achieve meaningful goals with your horse? Schedule a session with me, Lauren, your dedicated mindset coach. As an experienced competitor, I understand the mental demands required to excel at the highest level, and I'm here to support you in building a plan to help you stay accountable and reaching those goals. For more information, check out laurencervelli.com or click on the website link in our show notes. Let's work together to elevate your ride.
Okay, next we're going to move into a part called the brace neutral spine, the key to moving safely and effectively. The functional positions of the spine, as well as the hips and shoulders, can be categorized into a few basic configurations. The first one that we're going to go over is brace neutral. So, the brace neutral position is the optimal position for most human movement. By brace neutral, it means that your rib cage is balanced over your pelvis, your ears are aligned with your shoulders, and you're engaging the musculature of your trunk to stabilize the position. I'm going to pause the quote. Remember how in the beginning I talked about how your joints set up a framework that your muscles hold you to? That's what he's talking about here. All right, back to the quote. It is the most utilitarian position for the spine because it allows you to handle load safely and transmit force efficiently. For the majority of movements, you do not want your spine to deviate from this neutral position. To realize why, it's important to realize that the spine is divided into three regions: cervical, thoracic, and lumbar. Each region consists of individual bones called vertebrae, which function a lot like hinges. But these hinges are not meant to bend individually. Rather, they are meant to bend as part of a global arch throughout the entire spinal system. In fact, anytime one or more vertebral segments hinge or express a greater degree of motion in relation to the rest of the spine, whether it's the head, the base of the rib cage, or the pelvis, force production is limited and your ability to stabilize your hips and shoulders is compromised. This is what I refer to as local extension or local flexion spinal fault. To clarify this concept, think of your trunk and spine as a chassis for the primary engines of your hips and shoulders. If your spine is in a bad position, it is impossible to create a safe, functionally stable hip, knee, ankle, or shoulder position. This is why you want to fix spinal positioning before you go after the poor mechanics or tissue restrictions in your shoulders or hips. You'll never fix those big engines if the chassis is broken. Put another way, it doesn't matter what's going on at your shoulder, elbow, knee, ankle, whatever, whether it's a motor control or mobility issue. If your spine is out of whack, you're never going to be able to fix the problem. End quote. So if somebody has spinal issues, it's going to cause issues throughout the rest of the body. I've talked about this a couple times. My injury is on the left side of my low back, and it makes it so that I do not have very good use of my left arm and my left leg sometimes when I ride. And if I didn't understand the body, I would probably just say, "Oh, well, my left leg and my left arm is just weaker than my right leg and my right arm." And I would probably start trying to strengthen those areas more and more. When in reality, that's not true. I have just as much strength in my left arm as I have in my right arm, just as much strength as I have in my left leg and my right leg. I might be a little bit more right side dominant, but that's not because I have more force on that side or more muscular strength on that side. I just have more stability through my spine. And I've been able to achieve that because I do a lot of single leg, a lot of single arm work. And so I make sure that I'm also always strengthening the left and my right sides of my body as independently of each other as I can. And so in order to correct this, I have to work on stabilizing and strengthening the left side of my spine and my core more than my arm and my leg itself. And that is very, very common, something that I see all the time. Somebody will come to me and say, I have a really hard time keeping my left leg stable in the saddle. Can you give me left leg strengthening exercises? And then I'll evaluate the client and say, nope, actually, you just have a weak left side of your core. And that's why you can't stabilize your leg. So it's super, super common in the act. People are like, my ankles are bouncing all over the place and I can't keep them stable. I need leg exercises. Then I'll be like, hey, send me a video and watch me do and let me watch you do a couple squats and core exercises. I can pretty much guarantee it's not an ankle stability issue, it's a spine stability issue. Okay, we're gonna move on to the bracing sequence. So, The bracing sequence is the bedrock from which all safe, dynamic, and high volume athletic movement is generated. The idea is to make the bracing sequence instinctual so that you can reproduce the same neutral, stable position in any situation. Go through this sequence anytime you're setting up for a dynamic movement, picking something up, or squatting, or simply to fix your posture. Ingraining it will take time. In the beginning, it might take 20 to 30% of your mental capacity just to keep your shoulders in a stable, externally rotated position, your abs tense, and your spine neutral. But you have to cultivate the mindset that anything other than a braced neutral spine position is feasting on your athletic potential and opening the door to pain or injury. Pause the quote. So, anytime that you think, I'm just going to be lazy with my posture, that's affecting your ability to ride your horse effectively. Think of it that way. All right. Let's talk about the bracing sequence in a step by step position. So, here in the book, I have a nice little diagram and I'm going to explain it to you. So, first, we're going to start with a compromised position that is most common. Most people struggle with at least one of these things, but most of us struggle with all of them. Okay, we're going to talk about the body from the head down. The first thing, the head is usually forward. Our heads are usually pushed forward in front of our spine, in front of our shoulders. This comes from looking at screens and looking down all day long. Okay. So we tend to get weak upper neck, upper back muscles, and that's why people struggle with neck pain and trap pain so much. And then next, we have our shoulders rounded forward. If you sit at a desk all day, your shoulders are rounded forward all day. And then your body over time learns to keep itself in that position. It thinks that that's what you want. The body is not very smart. It will listen to you whether or not you're trying to teach it something or not. Our bodies are not that different from horses. Think about how many times when you were a youth kid and your trainer was telling you, you're always training your horse. I don't care if you're taking your horse out to graze or if you're going to do a showmanship pattern or if you're going to ride. You are always, always, always training your horse. Doesn't matter what you're doing with them. They're always in a training moment. Okay, next, the rib cage is usually flared up. So the rib cage gets flared up because of what's happening in our spine. So as the upper back gets rounded and the lower back gets overextended, it flares our rib cage up. Okay. And this makes it really, really hard to engage our core muscles. And then that leads down into the overextension of the lumbar spine or the arching of the back, right? Super, super common. We've all seen a youth kid with a duck butt, and it does not make for an effective seat when we go to ride. And the overextension of the lumbar spine leads right into the anterior pelvic tilt. They're pretty much the same thing. If you have one, you have the other. And then another thing, which is going to be a little challenging to understand, is a lot of people have no torque within their feet. So their feet are turned out and their arches are collapsed. This is super, super, super common. When you have no torque in your legs, you have no power in your legs. And it usually comes from a lack of glute strength and glute stability. So, torque is the amount of force that your body can produce at any given time. So, I want you to just stand and I want you to stand how you normally would. And I want you to feel how maybe your knees are a little locked out. Maybe you are not engaged in your muscles. Maybe your feet are a little flat. This is not an effective position to generate force safely. You're going to put pressure on your knees, on your ankles, on your hips, on your joints in general. So if you lack torque, you're going to be putting strain on your joints instead of on your muscles. Something that I always tell my clients is we want to tear up our muscles, not our joints. Our muscles are meant to be torn down and rebuilt back up. Our joints are not. So we want to keep our joints safe. We want to tear our muscles up. So, how we create torque through our feet specifically, because this is something that a lot of people struggle with, is you think about screwing your feet in the ground to stabilize your hips and you squeeze your butt to keep your pelvis in a neutral position. So, I want you to pretend that your feet are in the ground and you're literally going to screw them outward. And you're going to feel how, like, you're slightly externally rotating through the hips. And that's going to open up your hips. It's going to engage the glutes. It's going to engage the quads, the outer thighs, the hamstrings, the glutes, the calves. It literally engages all of your leg muscles. And as you're going through daily life, I want you to see how often you're not using torque correctly, right? Super, super common. Okay, so that's step one to correct this compromised position is screwing the feet into the ground, keeping those glutes engaged. You're going to notice that that's going to fix the flat arches. That's going to help fix the pelvis and the overextended lumbar spine. It's just going to put your lower body in that athletic position, right? And then step three, we're going to take a deep breath. So we're going to focus on breathing down through our diaphragm, down through our belly instead of high up in our chest. When we're breathing high up in our chest, that is encouraging the rounded forward shoulders and the rib cage being flared up. So you want to think about using those lower core muscles, breathing down into that pelvis, down into that diaphragm. That's going to also help keep that pelvis and that lumbar spine in that neutral position. And then we're gonna balance our rib cage over our pelvis, and we think about getting your belly tight as you exhale. So we engage the core muscles through the exhale. So still think about the torque, still think about keeping your butt muscles engaged, still think about breathing through the diaphragm. So take a deep breath in. Now, as you breathe out, you're gonna think about pulling your rib cage down and engaging your abs as you exhale, and then try not to let that go as you go to take that deep breath. So think about keeping those slightly engaged core muscles. So pretend that like a baby is with you, and the baby is gonna make a fist and slap you against your belly button. Like, you wouldn't have to engage to 100% to protect your organs and protect your spine, but you'd have to engage to maybe 20%, right? That's kinda what you wanna think about is somebody's, like, gonna slap your stomach, or a little baby that his hand weighs nothing, right? Is gonna give you a little punch. So just think about how you'd stabilize against that, and that's how I want you to live throughout your life, right? And then step 5, getting your head and shoulders in that neutral position. So you're gonna externally rotate your shoulders into a neutral position. So the backs of your shoulder blades are gonna pull your shoulders into external rotation. I don't want you to think about bringing your shoulders back. I just want you to think about externally rotating them. When we think about bringing our shoulders back, if we lack spinal and shoulder mobility, we're going to overextend our lumbar spine, which we just worked on correcting, right? So making sure that you still have all those things down below working. We have torque in our feet. We have butt muscles engaged. We're breathing through the diaphragm. We're engaging our core muscles. Okay. Don't let any of that go as we go to work on the upper body. Okay. I know this is a lot. It's multitasking. And then, so we're gonna keep those shoulders externally rotated, and then we're gonna hold our head in this neutral position, which is going to be easier to do with our shoulders externally rotated and open. That's gonna help engage the upper back, which is gonna help engage the upper neck to keep your head down and back. Okay. So now we're in our ideal position. Our ears should be right over our shoulders. Our rib cage should be nice and neutral. The spine should be nice and flat. The hips should not be tilted forward or tilted back. The knees should extend right down underneath the hips, and our ankles should be nice and engaged and torqued. Okay. So, this is the ideal standing position. This is the position that we are trying to find in everything that we do, whether you're walking, jogging, doing dishes, sitting at work, riding your horse. You want to try to figure out how to get your body to this position as much as humanly possible. And it's not about finding this position and staying there statically. It's as you move, like as you go to take a step forward, can you maintain that position without losing it, right? Can I step my right foot forward without losing torque, without losing glute engagement, without losing the upper back, right? And if I do lose it, can I gain it back? Okay, back to a quote from the book. Now that you have a model for organizing your spine in a neutral position and you can spot common spinal faults, you can start to apply the bracing sequence to fundamental positions like standing and sitting. Whether you're at work, chatting with a friend at the gym, or standing at attention, the basic setup is always the same: feet straight, back flat, belly tight, head neutral, and shoulders externally rotated in a stable position. Don't be that guy who stands with his arms crossed, shoulders rolled forward, back slouched, feet turned out, etc. If you care about how you look, feel, and perform, start paying attention to the quality of your standing position. I'm going to end the quote. Okay, so if you want to be the best rider that you possibly can be, it literally starts from how you position your body in your daily life. If you are tired of hearing your trainer yell at your body position for not being straight and not being effective, you need to correct it from the source. If you're at work and you're not having a neutral spine, you're not setting your body up for success to be able to go and ride your horse effectively. It's that simple. Hey, Elevate Your Ride fans. I wanted to take a moment to thank our very first gold sponsor, Hobby Horse Clothing Company. If you're looking for a cost effective way to elevate your look at the horse show, check out what Hobby Horse has to offer. From budget friendly crystal jackets to simple show shirts to stylish lifestyle tops, Hobby Horse has everything you need to look your best. Make sure you use code EYR2025 for an additional 10% off at checkout. Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning in to Elevate Your Ride. We're so excited to continue helping you elevate your performance in the saddle. To keep bringing you quality content and information, we're asking you to help us. Tell your friends about us on our podcast, like and share a meaningful quote you saw on our social media, write us a review on Spotify or Facebook. You can also join our Facebook group and ask all your health and fitness questions, or maybe post a success story to motivate another amateur. Your engagement really helps us support and encourage the equestrian community. We're also inviting sponsors and supporters to help us build our show. As a sponsor, starting at just $150, you'll receive marketing on our podcast, website, and growing social media platforms for your business. It's the perfect way to connect with the equestrian community and showcase your brand to our dedicated listeners. And for our supporters, your $50 contribution gets you a shout out on our social media and website. Every bit of support really helps fuel the show and helps us inspire and motivate equestrians. So, if you're interested in learning more about that, you can scroll down to the show notes of this episode and look for the become a supporter or become a sponsor links and click on those to get some more information. Thank you for listening. We can't wait to continue expanding our platform and helping you elevate your ride.
Hey, Elevate Your Ride fans. Are you loving our show and looking for a way to show your support? Check out our line of Elevate Your Ride merchandise. From stylish t shirts to cozy hoodies to journals and hats, we have everything you need to represent your favorite podcast. Ready to gear up? Click on the Buy Our Merchandise Here link in the podcast notes, or head on over to our website, elevateyourride.co, and click on the Store tab. Thank you for your support. Make sure to like, follow, and share our platform with your friends.
Back to a quote from the book. The idea is to bury your position as often as possible to avoid fatigue, focusing on staying in a neutral position while you transform from one position to the other. Think about it like this: your best working position is your next one, which is a hint to move often. Remember that standing is a technique in and of itself. Just because you have a workstation that enables you to stand doesn't mean that you are immune to muscle stiffness and back pain. Certainly, standing is loads better than sitting, and it opens up your hips and turns on the musculature of your legs, but it's not a cure all. You need to practice the bracing sequence and remain conscious of your position at all times. Whenever you're in an overextended position, your pelvic floor turns off, which can unleash problems galore, especially in women. Fixing this problem is simple. Squeeze your butt to set up your pelvis in a neutral position and then get your belly tight to brace the position. You'll find that a lot of the issues related to pelvic floor dysfunction spontaneously resolve themselves once you lock your pelvis in a neutral position. I'm going to pause the quote. So, like I said, it's not about creating a position that's static, right? I think we're going to talk about it here in a minute, but at some point, the book talks about how every 20 minutes or so, you want to be changing your position. You don't want to be standing all day long. You don't want to be sitting all day long. You don't want to be walking all day long. You want to be changing what you're doing in about 20 minutes or so to get out of the position that you're in, right? So if you find that you're fatiguing while you're sitting down after about 10, 20 minutes, then get up, move around, walk around, grab a sip of water, then come back and see if you can get back to that position again. It's not about finding a position and staying there static without moving for 8 hours. That is not good. That's not what we're trying to build. We're trying to build, can you find a position, stay there for at least a little bit of time, move out of that position, and then get back right to it? Okay, back to the book. Braced neutral sitting position. I have a saying: sitting is death. It causes muscle tightness, but that's not all. Long periods of sitting devour your athletic performance potential. This is even more true for those who spend 7 to 9 hours a day sitting in a compromised position. It should come as no surprise to you when you feel like a broken down mess after sitting on a plane, in a car, or at a desk. You forced yourself into a toxic position that feasts on your athletic potential and wreaks havoc on your health. It's not hard to see why experts are now referring to sitting as a disease. In fact, recent research suggests that long periods of sitting can be as harmful to your health as smoking. I'm going to pause for a minute. Is that crazy? Sitting can wreak as much havoc on you as smoking. Think about that. That is wild. Back to the quote. The trouble is, you can't avoid sitting. So, how do you prevent or at least reduce the damage caused by overextended periods of sitting? For starters, you need to learn how to sit. Sitting, like standing, is one of the most technically challenging things we do. Yet most of us are clueless when it comes to how to sit well. In order to stabilize your spine in a neutral position, you have to get organized while standing by following the bracing sequence, which we just went over. Once seated, you need to keep at least 20% tension in your abs to maintain a rigid spine. And herein lies the problem. Keeping your abs engaged at 20% is extremely taxing. All the research indicates that it's not muscular strength, but muscular endurance that dictates loss of spinal position. This is why so many people tweak their back at the end of the run or workout. It also helps to explain why most people collapse into a horribly rounded or overextended position after only a couple minutes of sitting. It's more comfortable because it doesn't require any work. Maintaining a stable position, on the other hand, takes focus and abdominal endurance. Pause for a moment. Does that sound a lot like riding horses, taking focus and abdominal endurance? If you want those things, focus on your posture. All right, back to the quote. The best way to keep from defaulting into a bad position and avoid the negative health effects that stem from prolonged sitting is to stand and reorganize yourself every 10 to 15 minutes. It's almost impossible to remain in a good static position for longer than 20 minutes. I know this is not always realistic, but if you're trapped behind a desk and you want to heal your body and reach the performance goals you're entitled to, you have to do the work. You have to make sacrifices. Think about it like this: every time you stand up and sit down is an opportunity not only to move, which is the main goal, but also to practice the bracing sequence, work on your squatting technique, and develop muscular endurance. While you're answering emails, you can also ingrain good movement mechanics and improve your athletic performance. People often make the mistakes of trying to correct their spinal position while sitting. The moment you sit down, the large muscles of your butt go to sleep. This not only places additional stress on your spine, but it also makes it difficult to stabilize your pelvis in a neutral position. So, if you fail to address the bracing sequence before you sit down, you don't keep your belly tight, or you round or overextend your spine when seated, fixing your position from your chair is difficult. For example, say you're sitting in front of your computer working, and after a few minutes, you start to slouch. After answering a few emails, you become aware of how bad your posture is, or you just become uncomfortable. So you try to fix it by flattening your back. Although it may seem as if you're rectifying the problem, all you're doing is going from a flex position to an overextended one. Again, in order to correct your position, it's best to stand up, go through the bracing sequence, and then sit back down with your spine locked in a neutral position. As a rule, for every 30 minutes of continuous sitting you do, you should mobilize for 4 minutes. I'm going to pause the quote. Okay, so we just did an entire episode about integrating fitness into your daily life. Okay, go listen to that if you haven't listened to it, or if you forgot what it is about. Pause this episode, go listen to that one, then come back to this one. Okay, every 30 minutes, do some stretches, do an open chest stretch, do some arm circles, do some toe touches, do a couple squats, do a couple leg raises. Like every 30 minutes or so, do something. It doesn't have to be a lot. It can be a stretch here, it can be a stretch there. I can't tell you how much of a difference that has made for me in my personal life. It is hard. Like, corrective exercise is hard. It probably takes about 15 to 30 minutes a day of focusing on specific muscles to truly correct a muscle imbalance. But if you just focus on not creating or feeding that imbalance in the first place, You don't have to spend that much time on that corrective exercise. If you have poor posture, do a couple shoulder mobility, back strengthening, and chest openers throughout your workday. Literally take 30 seconds each. It doesn't have to be a lot, and it will make a huge, huge difference in the amount of times that you have to spend correcting those issues in the gym. And because it adds to your workout time, it's frustrating, it's not fun. You feel like you're not actually exercising. It's not a good time at all. So just do a couple stretches. For pretty much all of my clients who have a desk job, I create an office workout for them, and it's just a couple key stretches. It's different for every person, but a couple key stretches that they already have in their normal workout. They're already familiar with them, and they just have to do it throughout their workday. I don't care if they do it all in a row. I don't care if they do it in order. I don't care when or how they do it, as long as they try to do it every day. They can do something twice. They can skip one thing one day and do it twice the next. I don't care. Just do a couple things every day. It will make a huge difference for you, I promise. Okay, we're going to talk about breathing mechanics next. To create a brace neutral spine position, you breathe in through your diaphragm and then engage your abs as you exhale. But maintaining this diaphragmatic breathing pattern is extremely difficult in positions that require high tension or involve an enormous load. What usually happens when people don't have a model for getting into a brace neutral position is that they inhale and then hold their breath, which is not only ineffective, but also costly. I'm going to pause for a moment. Think about if you're riding your horse and it goes to spook, and instead of breathing through your belly, you just tense up and you get really tense through your upper body and through your head and neck, and then you get backed off. When you're already in this tense position, you're not going to be able to absorb your body's force into the ground well, and that's how you get hurt. Ask me how I know. I've done it multiple times. Very first time I ever rode a horse, fell off, got super tense, reached my arm out, broke my arm. Next time I fell off, I got bucked off, got super tense, landed straight on my back, didn't roll, nothing. If I learned how to have better diaphragmatic breathing and not bracing and not holding my breath, I might not have gotten those types of injuries. Then again, I wouldn't have started my business and started this podcast if that hadn't happened. So maybe everything happens for a reason. What do I know? All right, back to the book. Imagine taking in a huge breath and then engaging your abdominals with all that air trapped inside. Do you think you could perform a high rep back squat while keeping your spine rigid? Better yet, could you take a bunch to the gut? Not a chance. You can use your diaphragm to stabilize your trunk, but the moment you have to breathe, you surrender your spinal position. So it might work for a max effort deadlift, but you're doomed after the first rep, or the moments you have to breathe. You can imagine how this bracing strategy plays out when you do anything highly aerobic. With your diaphragm jammed down to stabilize your spine, you only have one breathing option, using your neck and chest. Taking these very shallow breaths restricts respiration and makes it difficult to create and maintain stability. It's also going to create poor posture. It's important to understand that if you're bracing correctly, with your belly tight and your spine neutral, you won't need to put conscious effort into breathing through your diaphragm. It's a self regulating system. Breathing through your diaphragm is the most effective way to preserve a stable position, plain and simple. However, diaphragmatic breathing is difficult if you're in an overextended or flexed position. You end up breathing through your chest, laboring for every breath. Now imagine hanging out all day in a disorganized position with your diaphragm turned off. That's roughly 20,000 compromised breaths in a single day. You should take this stress breathing pattern very seriously because it can compromise sleep, recovery, performance, and more. Fortunately, it's pretty easy to fix. By simply addressing your spinal position, you can easily and effectively restore optimal breathing function. The same pattern applies to all sports. When you restore position, you restore function. When you improve position, you improve function. Okay, that's everything that we're going to go over today. That was kind of a long episode. Hopefully, you understood the majority of that. But let's go over the main thing that I talked about in here one more time, how to create a braced neutral position. All right, we're going to create torque in our feet. So we're going to think about screwing our feet into the ground, which is going to externally rotate the hips. That's going to engage all of our leg musculature and our glutes. We're going to squeeze our butt muscles together to keep our spine and our pelvis in a neutral position. We're going to breathe through our diaphragm, not through our head and neck and chest. As we exhale, we're going to pull our rib cage down and engage our abdominals. And then we're going to externally rotate our shoulders and pull our head and neck back into a neutral position. This should leave you in a neutral, ideal position. Head stacked hard over the shoulders, rib cage nice and flat, hips nice and straight, knees and ankles right underneath the hips. Okay, find this posture and stay in it for the rest of your day as best as you can.
Thank you for listening to Elevate Your Ride. Find us on Instagram and Facebook, all linked in the podcast notes. We'll see you next time. The information provided by Elevate Your Ride is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended as medical or professional advice. While we discuss health and fitness topics related to equestrians, the content provided through this podcast is not a substitute for professional advice. The views expressed by the host and guests on Elevate Your Ride are their own and should not be taken as professional guidance. We strive to provide accurate and up to date information, but we cannot guarantee that the information will be applicable to every individual listener or that it reflects the most current research or guidelines. Before making any changes to your health and fitness routine, we strongly recommend consulting with a qualified professional who can provide personalized advice based on your individual needs and circumstances. Elevate Your Ride and its creators will not be liable for any direct, indirect, consequential, special, exemplary, or other damages arising from the use of information on this podcast. Thank you for listening to Elevate Your Ride. We are committed to providing high quality content and appreciate your trust in us as a source of information for your health and fitness journey.